Everyone, and welcome to my Sunday Soulful Conversation. I'm Reverend Charlotte McGinnis, and as always, I'm just thrilled to be here and glad that you're here with me, whether it be live or later on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you may find me. Anyway, it's a beautiful day here. It's finally cooled off a little bit here in the mountains, and really loved getting out in the weather and having a little bit of coolness and not that extreme heat. And I want to actually, for those of you that already know what my title of my talk is today, it's called, I titled it, "It's the End of the World as We Know It." And I'll just say up front that this is not a gloom and doom talk by any means. It's not intended to that. It's just, it's a song that I liked a lot by REM, the band back in the 80s. They were awesome. And I'm going to actually share a little tidbit in a few minutes about that. But, the chorus is, "It's the end of the world as we know it." And then it ends, "And I feel fine." So that's what, this is the end of the world as we know it. And I do feel fine, and it's a good thing. So I want to keep us on that track, on that path, and how we can make the best out of this transition, ending of the world as we know it, but transitioning into a beautiful new world. So I do have a little cool story, but before I go there, I just want to thank you all once again for supporting me by joining me here on Sundays. I'd love it if you'd be willing to share this on your Facebook page or email it to your friends, whatever works. Of course, you can catch me on YouTube, on Facebook, and live on my website. And everything is on my website, charlottemcginnis.com, so I don't need to spend a lot of time going there. You're welcome to join me for any or all of my events. This week coming up, tomorrow night, a continuation. We're into chapter 3 of the book study from Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. It is the mastery of self. We've had some really great discussion. Chapter 3 tomorrow. If you have the book, great. If you don't, you can join us because I've got the points of conversation already out there. So we'll have a good meaty conversation. And of course, what is this the time of transition about is the mastery of self and what that means. And it's been really a great conversation so far. Also, this week on my Heart-to-Heart Soulful Conversation, Wednesday at 5, I've got a good friend and great therapist, awesome lady, Reverend Donna Menz. She's a Buddhist. She's a spiritual counselor, amazing person. And I know we're going to have a great conversation. So Wednesday at 5, again, all of this is on the website. So check it out. Okay, so it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. REM song, as I said earlier. And what really prompted this is, well, because it is always on my mind, because I do see the common theme amongst my spiritual seeking friends and those who are really on a conscious path, really looking for the greatest degree of understanding and awakening and transformation and healing. And so when I have these conversations, it always leads us back to one thing, and it's remembering who we are. And once we do that, once we remember who we are in truth, then the happenings or what's not happening in the world as we know it doesn't seem to impact us one way or another. I'm going to talk about Krishnamurti in this conversation today in a little bit, because he was obviously a wise man, a philosopher, and we'll get into his teachings in a few minutes. But this is about inner transformation, awakening to the divine nature of who we are in truth. Who are we? Well, we are divine beings of light. We are light. We are love. We are perfect. We are changeless. We're eternal. We're formless. And we are amazing. So we need to, and we are powerful beyond any of our greatest imaginings. And that really intrigues me, because I think that these times are calling on us, obviously, to go deeper into that knowing, to that truth, and that awareness as to we are powerful. We can rise above any challenge that seems to be happening in any moment. And to me, that's exciting. So I love to teach it. I love to practice it. I love to learn about it. I love to talk about it. That's why I do what I do. So what inspired this? Well, as I said, a lot of conversations that I have and the media and articles that I read, and there's definitely major shifts and transformation. And these, when I look back, when this came into my awareness, and maybe it was because I was not looking at these sorts of things, even though I think I was back in the late 90s on a pretty conscious spiritual path. But maybe I wasn't as aware. But when my awareness got peaked into this was at the end of the 1900s, 1999, moving into 2000. And remember the Y2K, all the hype about that and what's going to happen when that clock strikes midnight, and is everything going to, what's going to happen? So right there, that's 22 years ago. That, I think, triggered something in all of us. And then we fast forward into 2012. Okay, December 21, 2012. What was that all about? Well, that was the end of the Mayan calendar. Ooh, the end of the world. There's no indication in this Mayan calendar that the world is going to be beyond that. And so there was a lot of fear, a lot of hype, a lot of speculation, and we're still here. I will say that one of the most profound statements at that time that I heard, because as you know, I'm a big fan and friend of Greg Braden's. I've followed his teachings for many years and think he's really on in so many ways. He's an amazing guy. And he's described as being, integrating science and spirituality. He's a geologist, but I like, they describe Greg as being a futurist. And so guess what, going into 2012, and we actually did host him here in Flat Rock for a lecture, packed house, obviously, he always brings in the huge crowds. And anyway, what was the question? Because it was right before 2012, the 12/21/2012. And people asked, Greg, what's going to happen? What do you think? You're a futurist. What's your thoughts about this? And he says, I don't know. We haven't created it yet. And what his point was, and it's what I choose to express and what I choose to live from in my life, is that, and back to the book, The Mastery of Self, the book study, and everything that we do is that we are the masters of our destiny. And that if we really understood how powerful our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions were, we would never allow a negative, fearful thought into our field at all. Because, good thoughts bring good things. Fearful thoughts bring fearful things. And I'm not talking about using these tools for bringing in a new house or a Mercedes. It will work. I can attest to that. I do believe in the law of attraction, but I think it goes way beyond that. I think it's a mastery of self is really living from the place of self-realization, self-mastery, and total surrender. And then when we're surrendered, and we're just willing to be a channel, a vessel to receive guidance and extend it, just give and receive, give and receive. And when we do that, we're tuned into the mind of God, which is all encompassing. It's all about healing, unification, awakening, prosperity, all things good. It's about evolution of consciousness, awakening. So when we can get our desires and our stuff out of the way and become that clear channel, we'll get the direction that will lead us to be in the greatest degree of love for ourselves, so for self-realization, but also we will be able to offer that to the world. And that's the greatest gift we can bring to the world right now. The more healed I am, the more healed you are, the greater we walk in the presence of light and love in all we do. And guess what? There's only one of us here. We are one. We're all children of God. And every time I choose to respond with love over fear and tune out the voice of the mind chatter and surrender to that mind of God, that voice of God, which is unifying us, that's the greatest gift we can bring into our every moment. So that was where Greg Braden was expressing our power. I don't know. We haven't created it yet. Well, that was 2012. Here we are 10 years later. These seem to be 12-year patterns, right? So now lots of things are happening. Obviously, I've got friends all over the country. So people that I'm very close to have been at the effects of wildfires, floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, major earth shifts and challenges. And so the Mother Earth is rocking and rolling in a big way. I had read a quote, and it said something to the effect, I wish I could have found it, but it was from a Native American. He was a chief, and he basically said, that Mother Earth is just like a dog with fleas shaking us off right now. She's shaking and sort of recalibrating and everything that needs to be sort of cleansed, purified, and healed is being shaken away. So we're seeing that, aren't we? And a lot of this has to do also, what we're witnessing is these earth changes, these extreme weather patterns that we're seeing and changes, the extreme. Yeah, there's always been a lot of the same conditions, but the extreme and the intensity and the how often these things happen has been the most extreme I've seen in my life. Well, that being said, I also know that there are strong opinions as to climate change. And again, I'm never here to be political. I'm very apolitical. I look at everything with an open mind, a critical mind, and choose to make decisions for myself, not what the media is telling me. I listen to it, and then I put it through my own filters and really ask to go inside. So there's extremes on both sides about thoughts about that. But you can't deny that we are experiencing huge shifts on the planet, obviously. So is it because of all these toxins we're putting into the environment? Is it because of fracking? Is it because of emissions? Is it because of the chemicals? And my answer would be yes, 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 and yes to that. It's certainly, I don't think that those toxins are beneficial for our bodies, for our Mother Earth, for anything. And I do believe that they have an impact. And I know as humans, we can do better. We can make more conscious choices. We can choose to live more naturally, more chemical free. But on the other hand, I do believe from what I've come to understand that a lot of this that we're witnessing is a cycle. Okay, and these actually, if you look at these fractal cycles, and Greg Braden, again, if you go to his website, gregbraden.com, he has a fractal calendar that you can actually tap into and see the cycles of maybe your life, or see the cycles of and patterns, okay, of when major events have happened and so on and so forth. So we are also in a cycle of huge change. And as the Native American chief said, Mother Earth is shaking the fleas. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing or a scary thing. Well, what really probably prompted this conversation, one of my favorite places on the planet is practically my backyard. It's a mile away. It backs up to the community where I live, and it's a national park. It's called Carl Sandburg National Park. It's just heaven for me. And there's hiking trails, and there's goats. Carl Sandburg's wife was a huge goat. She raised championship goats. He was a poet and a historian and a biographer and a musician and an advocate for the unions. I mean, he was an amazing guy. a man's man. And but anyway, the property is very sacred, and people feel it when you walk there. You do feel that its beauty and its power, and how healing it is. Well, recently, just this past week, and I've been there twice to see this. The first time, Ellen and I were taking a walk just around the lake, and the lake was darn near dry. I was like, what the? It's not a huge lake. It's not a small lake, but it's a good sized lake. And it, if you walk the perimeter, I don't know, it's half a mile or something like that. But anyway, so there's two bridges, one on each end, and the one bridge was closed, and there was a sign that there was a sinkhole. And sure enough, you look down and there's a sinkhole, and the water apparently had drained through that. And as you walked around the lake, you can see that the lake's bottom is what you see. There is some water in the center, but for the most part, you can see it's pretty dried up. Well, of course, then you think about the fishes, right? And what are they doing? Because there are a lot of fish in there. Every time I'd go there and stand, I'd see all these cute little fish. And so I don't know what's happening with them, but I do know that the lake is darn near dry and a sinkhole of all crazy things. Well, what are we seeing in the media? Lake Mead, Lake Powell, the Colorado River, all of these water resources are depleted, and some are drying up. Well, what they've also come to tell us is that those resources out west provide water for 40 million people. So that's huge. What's going to happen? How are we going to proceed with, water? We have to have water to live, right? So there's definitely some issues at hand that are needing a good hard look, because they're right in our face right now. So I believe that, yes, we need to merge science, spirituality. We need to bring it all together to find the best solution, and that which serves us all, and understand that even though there's opposite opinions, we don't have to make anyone wrong. Let's put our attention on what we choose to create. What do we want to create? As Greg said, we haven't created it yet. Well, mind of God. Okay, what would be the greatest degree of healing and love in this current condition? And how can we together come together to heal this? And when we step back, go into our heart and listen, then we can take action based on our guidance. And it doesn't become a divisive battle, but it becomes a unified decision that we choose to heal and transform the challenges that we're seeing. So backing up, end of the world as we know it, REM. I found this really just amazing. I liked it. I thought it was interesting. So anyway, this song, 1992, I guess. I thought it was in the 80s, but 1992. And Michael Stipe, he was the lead singer of REM. He was explaining this song to Q Magazine, and he said, the words come from everywhere. I'm extremely aware of everything around me, whether I'm in a sleeping state, awake, dream state, or just day-to-day life. There's a part of it in the end of the world as we know it that came from a dream where I was at Lester Bang's birthday party, and I was the only person there whose initials weren't LB. So there was Lenny Bruce, Leonid Brezhnev, Leonard Bernstein. So that ended up in the song with a lot of stuff. I'd seen a lot of stuff that I'd seen when I was flipping the TV channels. And I like the way he says this. Now, this is 30 years ago. Can you believe 30 years ago? Wow. It's a collection of streams of consciousness. So yeah, it was, these media, okay, we see this, and it does impact us because it is a stream of consciousness. That's why what are we putting into the stream, right? Literally. So he went on to say that this was heavily influenced by Bob Dylan, especially the way Dylan sang Subterranean Homesick Blues. Stipe had once imitated Dylan in a low-budget film called Just Like a Movie, which was a play on the Dylan song just like a woman. Stipe claims to have had a lot of dreams about the end of the world, destroyed buildings, and the like. His stream of consciousness writing style in this very similar way to the dream movies. This started off as a song called Bad Day and had lyrics decrying the politics of the Reagan administration. REM finally released Bad Day on their 2203 compilation album, In Time, The Best of REM, 1988 to 2003. So when REM played this live, the audience reacted with a party vibe that threw off the band. They thought the apocalyptic lyrics would create a more subdued response. So I found that interesting. They're expecting like here they are given these apocalyptic lyrics, and they're expecting a subdued response, yet everybody's jamming, dancing. And I think we all know it. Those of you in my generation, we can think of the words, it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. But I think at some level, we all know that. And as I said earlier, yes, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing at all. You know, this world to this point has served us and served us well. But, now we have the tools, the wisdom, the guidance available to us any instant we just are willing to ask and tap in and listen to create a new world, a world where we can live in harmony and peace together. And that's really what these end times are about. I think we're coming to a place where there are technologies for the environment that can be healing. There are technologies for physical healing that can overcome anything. Now, I will say, and not meaning, I do believe there are powers that be that maybe, for whatever reason, and I would call it greed, are not wanting these to really come forth, because so much of this system is supported by keeping us in fear, keeping us sick, keeping the environment cruddy, and all of these things. It's not a conspiracy. It's economics. And I'm not saying I like it, because I don't. I'm not choosing to judge it and get emotionally invested, but if you really look down that rabbit hole, you'll see that that's the truth. And there's people that justify it and think that, yeah, that makes sense. And we got to sustain, and we got to take some hits with that, and I think we're waking up to say, no, there is a better way. And it's a way where everybody wins, and where love wins, and where we can live from a bigger vision and purpose of possibility. So we have to be willing to, I think that anyone who listens to me and probably tunes into a lot of the things I tune into, we're aware and understanding of a lot of these teachings and truths already. And many of us are integrating these into our daily practice. And I'll speak for myself. I know I can do better. I can always do better. And I do sort of evaluate myself before I go to sleep. Okay, where did I do good today? Yay, Charlotte. Where did I not do so good today? Yep, I can do better. Marianne Williamson, another thing, it's funny how things stick in your mind, right? Before you go to sleep, ask yourself, who have I not forgiven today? And put yourself at the top of the list. So forgive yourself for any screw ups you may have made that day, or anything that you're upset about, but also be willing to offer that olive branch to anybody who you may be, you know who they are or what it is, right? I don't have to go into that, I'm sure. So as we move into this, I think that this evolution, this transformation, will eventually lead us to the disappearance of the universe, whatever that means. I think it all just disappears, and we go eventually, when we all sort of wake up and get it and remember who we are, the universe and the lessons it provides no longer need to be here to mirror to us where we still need healing. In other words, this universe is a classroom that we are being faced with every moment, with everything in us that has not been examined, healed, forgiven, looked at, and brought into the heart for healing, into presence. So Gary Renard was right on when he wrote that book, one of the best Course in Miracles books that I think there is, teaching books. And so I love this quote, and this just piggybacks exactly what I'm saying, because it is a quote from the Course in Miracles, and it always stuck with me. I've been a student, it's hard to believe, for, oh gosh, a long time, almost 40 years for the course. Hard to believe I'm that old. Not quite 40 years, maybe 35. Still hard to believe I'm that old. But anyway, this quote says, "The end of the world is not its destruction, but its translation into heaven." What that tells me, and maybe you can think about what that means to you, but it is not its destruction. We don't have to blow each other up and set off a nuclear bomb or whatever, but it's its translation into heaven, meaning that eventually it will disappear. Once we integrate into God consciousness, into love, into awareness, all of these triggers and situations will just disappear, because they no longer need to be here, because we've learned what we need to learn. Heaven and hell are not destinations necessarily, but rather states of consciousness, states of awareness. So the end of the world is not its destruction, but rather its translation into heaven. I love that. And of course, as we know from the Buddhist teaching and most teachings, if you really interpret them properly, it says all of our suffering is from attachment to the illusion, to the dream. That's why so many people are dealing with intense pain these days. So, I like this is black and white. All of our suffering is from attachment. It could be attachment from conditions in our life, wanting them to be different. It could be from relationships. It can be from our finances, health conditions, conditions of the world, whatever it is. If we have attachments, to anything, and base my well-being, my happiness, sense of peace on those things going a certain way, we are sure to be let down. So again, it's about letting go, recognizing where we are attached, where we still are looking outside of ourself for meaning, sustenance, and value, and knowing that it's all about the journey back to our heart, the journey to home, and the remembrance of who we are, and understanding that we are all brothers and sisters on this journey to awakening. So Krishnamurti, he was Jiddu Krishnamurti, and I always thought he was a handsome guy too, just a neat looking guy. But he was a philosopher, speaker, and writer in his early life. He was groomed to be a New World teacher. He was an advanced spiritual position in the Theosophical tradition, but later rejected this mantle and withdrew from the organization behind it. And I don't know the politics, or if there was a politics, why he may have stepped down from, this position, because he was there to be the New World teacher in this Theosophical tradition. But my guess is, through experience, is anytime you get anything organized, because I've started and run 2 churches, charities, actually spiritual organizations and charities, and once you get organized, it's a great learning experience. I can say that. But I can also say that it does, in some means, restrict often our abilities to fully grow and embrace, because now we're dealing with personalities and egos and trying to, you'll never make anyone happy, and this person's pitting against that, and this person, because they gave more money, wants this, and that person, and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on. That's why I can talk to you every Sunday and throughout the week, just like I'm doing, and you can turn me off and you don't have to pay a dime. But if you do, I'm grateful, because I do have expenses, but not necessary. And I don't have to worry about overhead. I don't have to worry about bowing down to this one or figuring this out. It's just piece of cake. So I think organized religion, organized anything, those are crumbling as well. You're not seeing people run to acceptance, more of the evangelical communities. You're not seeing people run there anymore. People are realizing that no, there's more to this. It is a personal journey that we're taking, and I think people are realizing, yeah, I like what that pastor says, but hey, this person's got some great ideas, and I like this and I like that. So there are people, the internet has given us that blessing that we can bring a lot to the table and really use our critical thinking, our discernment to see what is the best for me. So, I do believe that, this is a new way of operating. And yes, I still love to connect and be with people. And it's fun, but I'm also much more mindful of it's quality, not quantity. I can love everybody, but I definitely want to bring people and situations and everything into my life that is supporting my awakening, my growth, and my peace and my well-being. So I would imagine, and this is just my speculation, that maybe the politics that could have been involved maybe said, no, that's maybe squashing me a little bit. So he chose to maybe be more independent. And I think I find that a lot with people, that their circles are getting smaller and smaller, but much more powerful. So Krishnamurti, he was born May 12th, 1895 in India, and he died in Ojai, California in 1986. So that he did have a very long life. He lived over 90 years old, which is that's a long life. And he had a lot of work to do. But here's some thoughts that he had. And I think that this is getting to my point about the recalibration, breakdown, whatever you want to call it, of organized religion and gatherings and so on and so forth, religion. And he says, when you call yourself an Indian or a Muslim or a Christian or a European or anything else, you're being violent. Do you see why it's violent? Because you're separating yourself from the rest of mankind. When you separate yourself by belief, by nationality, by tradition, it breeds violence. So I get that so deeply. It's like, who am I? Well, I'm a child of God. I'm holy, I'm light, and so are you. And all these labels, they and identities and really what I think a lot of organized teachings have led us to think. If you look at a lot of religion, more people have died in the name of God through these religions. And really what prompted my exploration, and it wasn't a negative experience at all from my Christian upbringing as a Methodist, because it was actually a very positive experience. But as I began, moved from West Virginia to Florida, and then saw that, wow, there's these people, I had Muslim friends and Jewish friends and all of this, and I was seeing that it was and Catholics. I used to have to hitch a ride to the golf course, and my friend's mother, who would drive us, we had to go to Mass before she'd take us. So I went to Mass, and that was not a bad thing. I mean, so I had a lot of, it was just another experience. But I think that if we cling to anything too much and say that this is the only way or the right way, it's divisive, and as Krishnamurti says, violent. So I believe that I get that, and I think that that's why, again, a lot of us are seeking deeper truths and understanding that we haven't gotten very far in a good way, and if we're going to move forward in co-creating this new world, it's the end of the world as we know it, but the new world, we've got to take a look at all of these things. And fear, acronym, false evidence appearing real. I would say the illusion appearing real, right? Great acronym, false evidence appearing real. Fear is the ego. Fear, when are we afraid? We're afraid when sort of like we're attached to conditions, and when the conditions aren't expressing what I want, then guess what? I'm afraid. And if I identify with the illusion, I'm going to be afraid. Krishnamurti, he says, a man who is not afraid is not aggressive. A man who has no sense of fear of any kind is free, is really free. A man without fear is a peaceful man. And I think that really you're seeing every therapist I know, and I know many, and of course I operate a prayer ministry and work with a lot of great ministers who are doing great work and counseling and spiritual practice. And of course, talking to a friend just the other night, and she's being guided to work with people in a more conscious transition, death of the body. All of these things that have been so fearful are programs. And so when we can let go of all of our fear, because if I really knew who I was and could tap into that, and I've had glimpses, so I know this is true, that when I identify with my eternal nature, there is nothing to fear. But if I need this to be a certain way or that to be a certain way, and I need to have this much in the bank, and the weather conditions have to produce this, blah, 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 then yeah, there's a lot to be afraid of. So all these friends of mine who are therapists and counselors and doing this work, we're being bombarded by a lot of people who are in fear. So it is real important for each of us to take time to stay centered and to keep ourselves, our energy elevated, and to be present and take that time to be still and be really mindful, because we can be in the world and not of it. We can walk this path of life. And that's really what I believe when we live in that state of non-duality, self-realization, nothing can affect us. And that's what we're all here to do. And when we remember who we are, there is no fear. One of the most famous Krishnamurti quotes that actually prompted me to look into him today is, I don't mind what happens. That is the essence of inner freedom. It is a timeless spiritual truth. Release attachment to outcomes deep inside yourself, and you'll feel good no matter what. So what's his secret? I think that he's known most for that. I don't mind. Whatever happens, happens. I'm not attached anymore to outcomes. Then we live in that peaceful place of power. We are truly free when we don't mind. And you know what? In the realm of eternity, none of this really matters. But in the meantime, enjoy it. But I want to say that when we surrender to the will of God, to unity consciousness, to awakening, at some point, and I had a friend who I studied the course with many, many years ago, and he used to say, I don't want to surrender because it might not be any fun. And he said that a lot, it was kind of like, I don't want to miss anything. And I've been there. All I can say is that I do know, again, I know, and I don't always live from this place, but I do know this, that there is nothing in this world that comes as a glimpse of what the kingdom of heaven is, or and what's the kingdom of heaven? It's a state of remembrance. It's a waking up. And there's nothing in this world that'll give it to us. No relationship, no amount of money, no state of health, no vacation, no anything, number of friends, whatever it is that you're looking for to make you feel safe, comfortable, and happy. There's nothing that is a glimpse of what heaven is. Maybe a glimpse. I think they call those holy instances where we have these little glimpses like, yeah, that's what I want. So why are we wasting our time? If we can get into this state of, I don't mind. Holy Spirit, show me what's next. What's your will for me? How can I bring healing to this situation? How can we move from fear to love? duality to non-duality. How can we wake up together? Because again, our salvation, our awakening, and this is something we really got to remember too. And don't like this one. No, I do. I get it too. But just our salvation, our final awakening, we're all one. And those people that are mirroring yucky stuff and you think it's them, but it's really unhealed in me or you, whatever that is, that's the big call for love, and it's going to keep coming and keep coming. And as the Course in Miracles says, the teacher of God is generous out of self-interest, because you know that if I want to really wake up and live in this state of non-duality, I got to forgive everything. I got to unplug all my judgments, all my projections, all my fear, all my political views. It doesn't mean that I might have preferences, but I am acting from a place of unity and healing, and I don't have to blame anyone or anything anymore. And damn it, people still want to hold on to certain things. And I recognize when I get caught up in those conversations and I'm like, why did you do that? But anyway, at least I recognize it. So a lot to think about. It is the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine because I know that what is to come is far greater than we can ever imagine. So closing with this beautiful quote from the Course in Miracles. And it's just a reminder of the peace of God that is always available. Christ is still there, although you know him not. His being does not depend upon your recognition. He lives within you in the quiet present and waits for you to leave the past behind and enter into the world he holds for you in love. So Christ lives within us. He's waiting for us to shut the door on the world as we know it and to enter the world that he holds out to us in love. We know what to do. It's the end of the world as we know it. And yes, we feel fine. We know what to do. All is good. And thank you, God. So thanks for tuning in. If you want to share this, I appreciate it. The easiest way to do it is you can direct people to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/InspireUTV, or to my website, charlottemcginnis.com, or share from your Facebook page. So thank you so much, and many blessings, and namaste.